as we accumulate more fabric and notions, things can get a little cramped in your sewing room. And for me, creativity is always easier when things are organized. So here are some organization tips that worked for me. Hopefully some will work for you too. A lot of times with these pattern envelopes, once you take the tissue paper out and cut it, it's difficult to get those patterns folded and get them all back in the pattern envelope. Or if your pattern envelope gets tattered and won't hold things anymore, or if, like me, you have traced off your pattern and made alterations to it, this is a good way to keep everything having to do with one pattern in one place. If you have extra buttons that you used for this pattern, little scraps of fabric, or even notes that you took about the pattern, you can keep that all together in a Ziploc bag. And you can keep all of these filed away somewhere if you have a drawer to keep them in. Or if, like me, you have more hanging space in your sewing room than drawer and storage space, I pop a hole in the top of this Ziploc bag and thread that through a hanger. And I hang that in the closet in my sewing room so I have everything together and I know where everything is. To organize my other patterns, for me, I do a lot of pattern making and pattern alteration. And I use a lot of different papers. So the big sheets of paper like butcher paper or this tracing paper. Or when you print off patterns online, you have all these sheets of printer paper taped together. So I don't like folding these big pattern pieces because then you get creases in your pattern and it's difficult to get it to lay flat again so you get a nice cut of your pattern piece on your fabric. So I store these in rolls. I roll them up, secure them with a rubber band, write what the pattern is on the outside of the roll, and I store them stacked in a little tote. So nothing gets flattened, we don't get creases in our pattern papers, and I can look on the outside of the pattern roll and see exactly what it is. To store fabric, which is always a challenge, I've discovered that stacking my fabric chunks one on top of the other in my totes kind of buries that fabric at the bottom and you have to dig through all of your folded pieces to see what's on the bottom, and then everything gets messed up. You have to refold everything. Whereas if you fold your fabric chunks and stack them in a tote like little files in your filing drawer, you can see on the edge of the folded pieces what it is. You can see by the width of the bulk of the folded fabric, kind of how much you have. And this tote is much smaller than the totes that I keep fabric in at home. Those totes are bigger and they're deeper, but that's not a problem because I can simply do 2 layers of my fabric folded and stacked like this. And it's a lot easier to then take out the top layer and to see what's underneath than to have everything stacked one on top of the other and have to pull through it like this. So having everything stacked, folded in my little squares and stacked like little files helps me see what I have and keep everything organized. Thread is another notion that we seem to accumulate. So to organize my threads, I really love those things you can hang on the wall and put your thread spools on. It's like a decoration and storage, but the walls of my sewing room are slanted, so I can't put anything on the walls. So I use a tackle box. And this is literally a tackle box for fishing equipment. Plano is a fishing tackle company. And I don't think they make this exact tackle box anymore, but they make things that are similar, that have these little dividers that you can put in and take out wherever you like. You can organize your threads by color, and it has 2 sides to it. So I can store all of my threads mostly in one place. For threads that you want to keep a bobbin connected to, so say you have spun off a bobbin of this thread and you want to keep these 2 together so you know you have it and you don't go and wind off another bobbin of the same color, you can keep these together by using either a rubber band or a hair tie. Thread that hair tie through the bobbin and then wrap it around your thread spool. And that hair tie can do double duty by, if you take that bobbin thread end and kind of tuck it under that hair tie, it'll help keep that from coming undone and unraveled. So you can keep your bobbin and your thread color together. And if your thread spool doesn't have one of these notches to keep your thread end from coming unraveled, that gets trapped under your hair tie as well, so you don't get unraveled thread ends. So hopefully some of these organization tips will help you keep your sewing room neat and tidy.